I played every single Garfield horror game ever made, and today I'm going to review all of them and find out what the best Garfield horror game really is.
I don't want to state my claim and make my case. No, it ain't even one, two big mistakes. Forget them, poke our faces off the sunroof.
If you're not familiar with it, the idea of a Garfield horror game might sound crazy, but it was actually quite a popular genre online. There's a bunch of history on it, and if you're interested, check out this video by Super Eye Patch Wolf. But it mainly started when this artist, Catherine Burke, started posting drawings of Garfield as a horrible creature. These drawings inspired a pixel artist on YouTube named Lumpy Touch to create scary Garfield animations, such as Garfield Gameboy'd and Garfield Horrorscopes, which both went viral and launched his YouTube career. At the same time, the subreddit r/I'mSorryJohn was created for people to share scary Garfield-related media. At its prime, from 2018 to 2020, it built up a massive community of 800,000 scary Garfield enjoyers, becoming a hub for posting absolute masterpieces and sometimes, but actually mostly, irredeemable garbage. During this period, the Garfield horror scene was thriving, and this was when most of the Garfield horror games I played were created. Speaking of which, let's start with Garfield's horror game. If you didn't know, Gorefield was a term coined to describe scary Garfield, and this game has a very scary Garfield. Not really, it kind of sucks. In this game, you're trapped in a house with Gorefield, and you have to complete a bunch of objectives, such as turn on the lights and find a weapon. The thing is, the environment is so dark that the game is basically unplayable. I got jump scared by the walls more than Gorefield, and avoiding Garfield is entirely dependent on luck, because I couldn't see nor hear him, and when I got jump scared by him, the game broke and I had to reopen it every time. I blindly wandered around and through trial and error memorized the turns I needed to take. Using this method, I managed to complete the first two objectives: find the electrical panel and turn on the light. And as it turns out, turning on the light does not turn on the light. 1 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. I was so hungry. This one's made by Lumpy Touch, the animator I mentioned previously. In this short game, you wake up in the middle of the night to find your house entirely covered in orange fur. Literally everything is covered. The light switches, toilet, ceiling. Going down a long flight of stairs, you discover the gluttonous head of Garfield sticking out of the wall. He has consumed the whole house. You then have to explore the rest of the house to find lasagna to feed him, and once you do, the game ends. This game is based on possibly the first Garfield comic ever made, created by Double Baby all the way back in 2013. Similar to the game, it's a short comic where John wakes up, goes downstairs, and finds, uh-oh, Garfield has eaten his house. Overall, pretty cool love letter to Garfield, but it's too short. 3 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. Lasagna Boy, classic. This one's mainly a puzzle game. It's not really horror, but it has jump scares and it has Garfield, so it counts. In this game, you play as a delivery boy from an Italian lasagna restaurant who gets trapped in a house with Garfield. You have to hide behind walls, navigate through different floors, opening drawers, finding keys to find a way to kill Garfield before it kills you. It's based on the animation Garfield Gameboy'd by Lumpy Touch, and it nails the art style and vibe of the original, turning a short animation clip into a full game. As you see later, most of these games are actually inspired by Lumpy Touch's animations. But I have to say, the main mechanic of hiding from Garfield looks more fun in the animation than in the game. It would be fine if it was a short section of the game, but the whole game, which lasts more than an hour, is mostly just hiding and waiting. Plus, progressing required lots of trial and error to figure out where to go, which meant I had to backtrack a lot. Garfield isn't even the main antagonist of the game. He dies in the first section and a bunch of random monsters replace him, like Cerebus, Minecraft Piglet, Piglin, and Octopus. My main complaint is how tedious this game is. The mechanic of pressing a combination of arrow keys to open drawers was cool until I had to open 50 of them. I stopped playing before I reached the end, and while watching playthroughs, I saw a clip of the final boss. It actually looks torturous. Half of the boss fight is spent waiting and listening to the same loud laser sound over and over again. Overall, it has potential if it was shorter and not so tedious. Also, it needs more Garfield. 3 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. Lasagna Boy. So this is the new and improved successor of the previous game, and yeah, I definitely think it's a huge improvement. It's much less tedious, the graphics are more polished, and there's a variety of different locations and gameplay mechanics, unlike the original. This game is also heavily focused on platforming, and its puzzles are more complex. The story has also become a mysterious and complex plot involving secret societies, rituals, and demons. It's much more interesting, but it comes at a terrible cost. This game has no Garfield. That's right. Technically, I shouldn't have included this game in the video, but whatever. It's technically a sequel to technically a Garfield game. The monsters that replace Garfield are cool though. For example, there's this worm in the castle dungeon, it chases you for a while, and it gets killed by this bigger dragon worm. And then there's this floating demon head. Not everything in the game is cool though. The game still carries some of the tediousness of the original. There's this bit where I had to wander around in the maze and try to avoid guards. It wasn't clear where to go, there's a lot of waiting, and it was easy to get lost. It's not the most fun part of the game, but there's this part where I had to find a key, and the game led me to the dorm room of the castle guards. There were like 20 beds and had to search every single bed by pressing a combination of keys while avoiding a guard. It's like the 50 drawers from the original, but worse. Anyways, I did that, I searched all the beds and I found nothing. So I went through a door at the back of the dorm, which led to another dorm room filled with even more beds. I'm sure this isn't the way I'm supposed to find the key, but just in case, I stopped playing. Also, there's this railway cart puzzle that appears multiple times throughout the game. It's really broken. The cart's wheels would get stuck against the bottom of the cart and break everything. I spent hours getting past it. Overall, it's much better than the original, but it's still too long and tedious. I like it a lot though. It reminds me of the janky Flash games I used to play. In a good way. I wouldn't have played 3 hours of it if it weren't good. 4 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. One Monday with Garfield. Oh boy, oh boy. When I started making this video, I did not think about the possibility of terrible FNAF clones. But as far as FNAF clones go, this could have been worse. It could have been 5 Mondays with Garfield instead of 1. In this game, you're in an office trying to survive the night while being attacked by Garfield and Normal. Just like normal FNAF, there's a camera system to monitor Garfield's location, and if Garfield appears, you have to click on this button on the right. If Normal appears, you have to click on him. Do you see the problem with this gameplay? The camera is completely useless. You can just wait for Garfield and Normal to pop up and click them away. It's so broken. On my first playthrough, I died, but not to Garfield or Normal. I clicked on this fan and it killed me for some reason. Overall, it's okay. The loud, jaunty music helped a lot. I probably could not have endured this game without it. 2 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. The Garfactory. Another FNAF clone, but this time in a Garfield factory. This one's okay. I only played the first night because I didn't think there was anything after that worth playing. And on that night, there were 3 Garfields roaming around. A strange 3D Garfield animatronic, an Among Us Garfield, and a buff Garfield. The standard FNAF stuff applied. I could check the cameras, toggle the lights, and close the doors. There was also a Pigeon Garfield and a Garf Funko Pop, which is what I call a Garfield Funko Pop, but they didn't do anything. Also, I needed to check one of the rooms and replenish this lasagna cigarette bar when it got low. I didn't find out what happens if it runs out though. The gameplay is okay, it works. I managed to survive from 3D Garfield and Among Us Garfield, but at 5 AM, Buff Garfield stood outside my door for so long that my batteries ran out and he game-ended me. I feel like something could have been done with the factory theme, but they just went for boring standard FNAF type stuff. However, I do like the extra page in the main menu. It shows you every Garfield variant, their jumpscare animations, and even lets you enable cheats. This is the type of stuff that games used to have. 2 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. 5 Nights at Garfield's Scary House. This is probably the best of the FNAF clones. It feels more polished than the others, using high quality graphics made using assets from official Garfield games. There's interesting mechanics here, like this dinosaur and skeleton. You have to click and hold onto them to prevent their blankets from floating off. I guess it's the same as the FNAF 2 puppet music box, but it feels unique. The 2 main animatronics in this game are Dracula and Liz's decapitated head. They both have their own movement paths and methods to counter them. The thing is, this game is just very difficult. The first 2 nights are already challenging and it's supposed to get harder every night. On the 3rd night, there's a duck that moves towards you. Once it reaches you, it prevents you from countering the Liz head, so you're basically screwed. There's a TV that you can activate to scare it, but it breaks after you use it too many times. Overall, smooth gameplay, fast pace, it's fun, but just way too hard. 3 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. Pala Lasagna, or Pale Lasagna, I'm not sure which is correct. The cover art says Pale, but everywhere else, the game's URL, description, title, all says Pala. Does Pala mean pale? I don't know. I could not play this one, like I literally could not play it. I got stuck at the title screen and couldn't progress any further. Literally, the very first moment of this game is a puzzle that requires knowledge of MS-DOS, a 1980s text-based computer system. During this era, I was not alive. Despite help from elderly people and elderly people in YouTube tutorials, I only got one command far into the puzzle by typing /dir, which led me into an empty directory. What a shame though, because the screenshots of this game look really cool. Question mark out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. Garfield Horrorscopes. This one is the first of 3 games made by Sentimental Moon, all based on Lumpy Touch animations. In this one, you play as John, who's told by this Furby that he's been kidnapped by Garfield Taurus. This Furby's name is Cupfield T, and he wants John to find a book that contains forgotten attacks that can defeat Garfield Taurus. The gameplay is very similar to Lasagna Boy's. You have to wander around and solve puzzles, and hide behind barrels when Garfield passes by. In order to search houses, you have to complete a tiny platformer level, which is pretty cool. After getting the book, you switch characters from John to Cupfield T, and fight Garfield Taurus in an epic boss fight. Overall, it's super janky, super amateur, but also charming and surprisingly fun. 3 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. Garfield Gameboy'd. Another Gorefield game by Sentimental Moon, but this one is actually pretty amazing. It opens with a cutscene of Odie sleeping in a house. Someone calls him to come and play his favorite game, waking him up. Odie then walks across the house, and a Garfield-shaped shadow briefly appears behind him. Once Odie reaches the window, Garfield eats him. 2 weeks later, you play as John, hiding from Garfield. Once again, very similar gameplay to Lasagna Boy, with the addition of goop dripping down from the ceiling. If you touch the goop, your scent bar increases and Garfield moves much faster. Once John reaches the end of the hall, he hears a phone ringing coming from downstairs. John then falls through the floor. Never mind, I think I broke the game. John actually turns to the other end of the hall to reach the phone, but oh no, Garfield has arrived. John escapes and goes to the attic to find a lock to trap Garfield, but Garfield has become a spider. John escapes downstairs and now has to open safes to get ingredients to defeat Gorefield. Once John gets the ingredients, he uses a syringe and injects Garfield. I still don't know how this minigame works. When I use the syringe, sometimes Garfield's health decreases, but sometimes I run out of time immediately. If you die here, there's a very haunting game over screen. But if you complete it, John succeeds in defeating Garf, and Nermal appears, telling John the deal has changed. John then goes into the dark basement, where Garf is still alive. John has to use a flashlight to see in the dark, but if Garfoid passes by, he has to turn it off. He evades Garfold, reaches the end of the basement, getting a can of gasoline, exploding Garfoid and sacrificing himself in the process. If you die in this basement section, there's an even more haunting death screen that I could imagine becoming the subject of a 3-hour Lost Media YouTube documentary. Overall, it's very charming, very janky, very buggy, but it's fun trying to work through the bugs. It's short, it's simple, lots of mini games, and I am a big fan of this. 3 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. The next game is the last Garfield horror game from Sentimental Moon. Will it surpass these two? Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. Gar-Type, Rise of Starbuckle. This one was marked as a virus when I downloaded it, so I didn't play it.
Aww.
Garfiend. This one isn't a full game. It's a demo for an action platformer called Die Vengeance. However, the demo is a Gorefield boss fight, so technically, it is a Garfield horror game. The bullet hell style platforming gameplay is very fun, very fast paced, and it's at a good level of challenging. There's a lot of mechanics to discover, a lot of projectile types, platforms, and attacks. The Gorefield design is sick. It has 6 heads surrounding a central head covered in bony armor. During the second phase, the center head reveals itself and activates its Eye of Ra to shoot a giant rotating laser beam. It's kind of fun being dropped into the middle of a game and having to figure everything out on your own. It makes me want to play the full game. 4 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. Georgefield. I have no idea what's going on in this one. The description of this game says, you are a cat with an abusive owner. These are their stories. It starts with Garfield alone in a room. Someone walks in and says,
Hello, Georgefield. You are stupid, insignificant, and ugly. I hate you. I wish you would just shrivel up and die.
They then drop their gun, and Garfield picks it up and shoots them.
You monster. Actually, I'll show you.
This person, who is then revealed to be named Evil Guy, then beats up Garfield.
They call me Evil Gone. That was me dancing.
Garfield then somehow finds the gun again and shoots Evil Guy in the knee.
Now you shot me in the knee. Now I need to get knee surgery.
Evil Guy then leaves and the game ends. Actually, I don't even know if it ends or if the game is just stuck. 1 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. Garf. I like this one. I'm just gonna show the whole game to you because there's no way I can explain this.
As John laid in his bed, he dreamt softly, but damn, that old Garfuck had other plans for him. Silly old Garfuck morphed into a parasitic catworm. I will burrow into John's ear canal and eat his brain, he said menacingly. Arrow keys! Eat the brain, open bracket, click exclamation mark, close bracket. This tastes just like lasagna. Garfuck compares John's brain to delicious lasagna. John feels something weird as he wakes up. What's going on? I have a pounding headache. Use left-right arrow keys to dodge Garfucker's attacks. John barely escapes with a few brain cells left. He needs to look for a flashlight. John finds the flashlight, but don't let Garfuck see you. Don't look at him. John barely escapes with a few brain cells left. He needs to look for a door out. Don't look at Garfuck. John found a door. Make a run for it. Arrow keys. I'll hunt you down, John. Garfuck threatens John as John makes his escape. Years later, John checks his mailbox and finds a letter. It's from Garfuck. I want to make things right. Has Garfuck changed his ways? Will John be his friend again? But wait, the letter kind of smells like an Among Us fart? John was fart pranked by Garfart. The end. Wow.
4 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. The Last Monday. Okay, I know many of the games I've covered weren't really Garfield horror games. Many of them weren't even horror games at all, and some of them were barely even games. But this one fully encapsulates the term Garfield horror and makes up for all of them. It's also probably the most popular game on this list, and for good reason.
Paint over the sigils.
In this game, you play as a small child who wakes up in an empty neighborhood with a singular house. Garfield has gotten locked out of that house and needs your help to find the key. This game is crazy. It's a whole surreal experience with a super strong story buried under its strangeness. You constantly switch perspectives from John to the small child, going through flashbacks, dream sequences, and reality. For most of the game, you don't even know who to trust or what's going on. Even at the end, there's a lot of foreshadowing and details that you probably missed. This game balances fun mini-games, scary moments, and narratives seamlessly. I love the VHS low-res graphics. They give off an atmospheric, unnerving feel. The whole game seems very inspired by analog horror in that way, with a grand-scale story, unnerving jump scares, haha, uncanny Mr. Incredible. Even though Garfield remains mostly the same throughout the game, he is one of the scariest reimaginings of Garfield. He doesn't even need to be a gigantic monster to be scary. Overall, highly recommended, 5 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. This might be my favorite game here, tied with the next one, which is Gar-Type. This is the last game on the list, and it's also the most recent one, released 2 months ago, and it's made by the living legend Lumpy Touch. This one is a side-scrolling arcade space-themed shoot-'em-up, and you play as ace pilot John Starbuckle, flying his prototype starfighter Gar-Type D, on a mission to destroy Gorefield, the living planet. This one's very fun. The energetic, synth-saturated soundtrack, the space environment, and the monochromatic purple color palette meshes so well together. It feels authentic, like playing an actual arcade shooter. The bosses are ridiculously cool. All of them are different Garfield creatures and they are super creative. For example, there's a celestial Liz boss who attacks with her staff and summons things. Once you defeat her, it's revealed she's actually Gorefield's tongue, used as a sort of anglerfish lure for John. That's pretty freaky. Another freaky enemy is the Garfish, which is my personal favorite enemy in this game. I like that there are different projectiles you can shoot, and they're named after different types of pasta, like ravioli, macaroni. What's the other one? Spaghetti. My personal favorite is macaroni. Ravioli is the worst one, I don't know how to use it. The G-Field special move is also unique, allowing you to pass through objects and shoot a wave of projectiles. Overall, an amazing game. I wish it were longer and that it had a save function, because I quit the game and I had to restart it from the start. But it's a super impressive passion project. 5 out of 6 Garfield hit whiskers. And that is every single Garfield horror game that currently exists. Was it worth it playing all these games, you may ask?